Somebody like myself is sitting on the other side of the table, signaling them how much to bet and how to play their hands. So we could get a big payoff, but not draw a lot of attention to ourselves. Simple stuff. This would be question. This would be come into the game, hot deck. This would be I can't see. This would be I can't hear. Go to that table, eat some cards. It means like get rid of the low cards that are still in the deck if you're betting low. Play is over. The casino is looking at this and thinking maybe this is okay. It doesn't look like there's a card counter there. This guy's drinking.
Sweetheart.
It was very compelling to try to take their money. All these suits that are looking at you, trying to figure out if you're doing exactly what you're doing.
Wow, big winner.
Cameras that are watching you and recording you, and they like to think that card counting was illegal, but we were just playing by their rules. My name is Daryl Purpose. I'm in the Blackjack Hall of Fame. I've been asked to lead casinos on 6 continents. I beat the biggest casinos in the world with these card-counting computer shoes. I grew up with a lot of feminine energy, my mother and my 3 sisters. My biological father, I never met him. He left when my mother was pregnant with me. We were in a middle-class suburb of Los Angeles. Money was tight, though. We didn't have a lot of extra. When I was 16, my mother put a book called Beat the Dealer in my Christmas stocking. She thought it was about a card game. She didn't know it was about gambling. I always loved math, and I always loved cards. I think I was on the spectrum a bit, but I ended up learning how to count cards. So I ran away to Vegas as a teenager and made a career out of playing blackjack. I'd like to say it was Vegas in the 80s, but it was Vegas in the 70s. There were very few casinos, at that time, so it was kind of a small world. I was so young. I went there with $50 and a guitar and 1 shirt. I spent that $50 on a room for a week. As a youngster, there was a free breakfast at this place, catty corner from the Sahara, called the Centerfold. And every day, they would have a couple pieces of bacon and some potatoes and a couple of eggs. And it was free. There was always a young woman dancing on the stage. You had it all, right? Mostly I was there for the breakfast. I got a job selling ballpoint pens, 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. I was cold calling businesses. My first paycheck was like $150, and I went right down to the Stardust and doubled it. And I thought, okay, this is good. I'm home. I'm gonna do well. I got an apartment. I just started practicing hours and hours, and I ultimately learned how to count cards. I had to make a living somehow, and I was good at math, so card counting was perfect for me. It was fun. I remember I was practicing so much, there was this gigantic 8 of clubs that would come into my dreams every night and chase me down the Las Vegas Strip. Once you have it, these casinos are your ATM. Card counting is not cheating. It's just playing a game. The casino offers the game. You're gambling your own money. Do you want to play it well, or do you want to play it badly? If the casinos could identify the card counters, they could ask them to leave. Because it's just a business, and if you aren't going to make them money in the long term, they don't want you in their business. People have this idea, card counting, you have to be a genius. The truth is, I could teach you to count cards in a day. It's about keeping track of the little cards versus the big cards. So you keep a running total. 2 through 6, you add 1. And for the big cards, 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace, you subtract 1. So you can see if your running count is positive, that means there's more big cards in the deck. And that gives the player an edge for a couple of reasons. The dealer has to hit their hard 16, and you don't. So the dealer will bust more often. You know a little bit about what's left in the deck. So you can move your bet up or down, and then you can vary the play of your hand. Card counting is about being good with simple math under pressure. The big cards are favorable to the player, and the small cards are favorable to the house. And that's what card counting is. I got way better than I needed to get. Finally, I went to a casino, and I saw a guy was betting the same way I was betting. He was Ken Houston. Ken was maybe to this day, is the most famous card counter. His thing was team play, where a group of players use signals to beat the casino out of their money and then split the winnings. I was invited to try out for the Ken Houston team. I went for this tryout, and I had no idea what they were going to do, and they handed me a deck of cards. They said, count this down. And I realized they're going to time me. And I counted down.
+8.
And they say 10 seconds.
Is that good?
And they say that's the best we've ever seen.
It's good.
Yeah?
It's good. Put her there.
And they hired me.
So I'm in.
I was just a kid, just trying to find my way in the world while I was doing these big things. You know, this was the biggest blackjack team on the planet. I was looking for some male role models, and unfortunately, I found perhaps the wrong ones. We had fun. There were team dinners where we'd go out and meet after the game. We'd pool the winnings, and I'd get my cut. I remember our first big win. We went down to the motorcycle dealer, and we bought a couple of Honda 750s and drove them to Los Angeles. Rented a Rolls Royce for a week just to get our pictures in it. And there was just drugs and women. All these other people on the team had already gotten steamed up. You know, they had already been caught counting a lot. So they sent me in, and they would have a big player come in and sit on the other side of the table, and it would be them that bet the money and them that won the money, but we would be telling them exactly what to do. A big player is somebody who looks like a losing gambler, and in fact, they don't really know how to play the game. Somebody like myself is sitting on the other side of the table, signaling them how much to bet and how to play their hands, so we could get a big payoff but not draw a lot of attention to ourselves. Simple stuff. This would be question. This would be come into the game, hot deck. This would be I can't see. This would be I can't hear. Go to that table, eat some cards. It means like get rid of the low cards that are still in the deck if you're betting low. Play is over. The casino is looking at this and thinking maybe this is okay. It doesn't look like there's a card counter there. This guy's drinking.
Hey, sweetheart.
It was very compelling to try to take their money. All these suits that are looking at you, trying to figure out if you're doing exactly what you're doing.
Wow, big winner.
Cameras that are watching you and recording you, and they like to think that card counting was illegal, but we were just playing by their rules. At that time, in the 70s, the mafia was really running things. The Griffin agency was working it for the casinos. So there was one agency that was doing some detective work, and they're trying to catch card counters. They did not like those card counters. If you're actually playing well, oh no, we don't like you, and we're gonna take your picture, we're gonna show it to everybody. People started getting barred, and sometimes it was a little bit ugly. I remember Ken Houston got punched and broke about 19 bones in his face. And I got threatened at the dunes. They brought me to the back room, and the guy had a pair of pliers, and he was just holding the pair of pliers. And they threatened me with the big wide open desert out there. They ended up arresting me, you know, of course, disturbing the peace or whatever. They just were powerful, and they kind of did what they wanted. They definitely tried to send card counters a message.
I'm gonna have to ask you to come with us, please.
The party was about to come to an end. I got barred from everywhere, really. We were being driven out of Vegas, and we needed to come up with something that would change the game. We needed to find new ways to play. I figured out that you could watch the shuffle and see where the cards went. You could figure out the odds based on what cards are still left in the deck. And ultimately, I got my hands on a computer, and it tracked the shuffle for us. These are the shoes that have a card-counting computer hidden in them. There was a switch up and a switch down on each shoe so that we could get any number between 1 and 15. We would tell the computer what cards were being played exactly, and as the cards went into the discard rack, the computer knew the whole stack of cards. Just before we have to play our hands, the computer will give me a negative number or a positive number with buzzers on our insteps on the bottom of our feet. Depending on how positive or how negative it is, I know that that's the edge. A negative number is an edge for the house, and a positive number is an edge for us. When the cards good for the players were coming, we bet big, and when it was good for the dealer, we bet small. That's the trick. These are the homemade lithium batteries. We would put it on our ankle. We used to go through TSA with these, and it was just no problem. This would not fly, I don't think, these days. The computer itself, about the size of a pack of cigarettes. It's held together by epoxy. My friend Craig, these are his shoes. We became shoemakers. Craig was working on this exact pair of shoes one day. He had the box cutter, and he was cutting, and he slipped. And he shoved the box cutter right into his chest. And then he was like, "Can you guys take me to the emergency room?" And the guys were like, "No, man, we're going on a play. You know, you can get a taxi." And he was okay. We thought to try out the shoes, we wouldn't start in Vegas. They were a little sharp in Vegas, so we went to England. I was traveling with my friend Munchkin, and he was kind of just like a bodyguard, which is funny, because Munchkin's a small man. He was gonna watch out for me. We didn't know how they were gonna react if they found this device. So we started to use the shoes, and they worked like a charm. So I'm tapping my feet, my shoe is buzzing, and I'm winning.
Oh!
And after we won a few thousand, we quit and we went to the cage to try to get our money. They said, "Well, we'll give you a check tomorrow." And we thought, well, that's unusual.
Excuse me?
In Las Vegas, they would always pay you immediately. We were surprised, but we thought ultimately it's a small casino, it's a small business, they just don't have this much money. We went home and went back the next morning. We did not guess trouble was waiting. The next morning, we arrived to get our check, maybe play some more. I was all suited up with the computer and the shoes, ready to go. Immediately, they were like, "This is Mr. So-and-so from Scotland Yard. He wants to talk to you."
Mr. Purvis?
Yes.
We knew we were in big trouble.
Will you come with me?
The cops said, "We're gonna search your hotel." We thought, uh-oh. I didn't know what they were looking for, but the briefcase is there with everything in it. Our backup lithium homemade batteries, all the wires, the other backup computers, the records from where we had played. We knew that if they found it, we were screwed. So we're riding along in the cop car, and I see Munchkin giving me the stink eye, and he's looking down at my ankle. Like, what is going on? And I look down there, and the cord to the card-counting shoes has fallen out of my pants. I reached down and I stuffed it back in my sock. Oh my God. That was a close call. They took us to the room. They started lifting the mattresses and basically looking everywhere.
No.
All the drawers, behind the curtains, underneath the towels in the bathroom, and they've been everywhere except for the briefcase, which had everything in it.
Nothing?
Finally, they had looked everywhere. They walk over and he puts his hand on the briefcase, and I think, this is it. We were done. Munchkin and I are just hoping they don't open that briefcase. It had all the evidence he needed to incriminate us. He opens it, things were about to get bad. He didn't know what he was looking at, and he shuts it. He apparently just wasn't thinking about it. He was just going through the motions. He was done.
Let's go.
We just got lucky. And we got the money, got away with it again. Even after that close call, our lesson was that the shoes work. So we took it everywhere else. All across Europe and then back to Nevada and Atlantic City. Ultimately, the shoes won us close to $1 million. It felt like we had a little superpower.
My name is Ashley Revel, and I sold everything I owned and put it on one spin of the roulette wheel in Las Vegas. The story really began for me when I was 32 years old. A lot of my friends had started to get hitched. I was young, free, and single. I was sort of feeling a bit lost, a bit of a loose end, really. For me, I've always looked upon gambling as a very easy way of making money. And then I was with a friend of mine. We used to go to casinos together. We'd win at poker, and we'd play blackjack and start to lose. It was a bit of a spiral, really, and it wasn't good. Because we both love gambling, we just had this crazy thought that wouldn't it be amazing just to stop frittering away our money.
Sell everything and bet it all.
And he was like, that's brilliant. I said, well, let's do it. It was like, yeah, let's do it, you know, over a beer. But things changed. He pulled out, but I decided to do the bet. I just wanted to feel the buzz of what it felt like to gamble everything. I wanted to do one massive, huge bet and never bet again. So with this bet, I would either double everything that I owned or I would end up with absolutely nothing. And I was ready to risk it all. So once you've decided to bet everything, you've then got to decide what game to do it on. I picked roulette because it gives you the closest odds to 50-50. The bet had to be pure, and it was going to be a simple decision of either red or black. One would be riches, fame and glory, and the other would be a disaster. I've always wanted to go to Las Vegas, seeing pictures of it, seeing videos of it. Where else in the world, other than Vegas, is the place to do the bet? Being Vegas, I thought that would be pretty easy and they'd all be crying out for it. But then it all went a bit wrong. It was surprisingly difficult. A lot of casinos didn't want to touch it. They didn't want to see someone risk everything and potentially lose, because that would have been terrible publicity. But eventually we did find one. It was the Hard Rock Casino. And I thought, that's cool, that's quite a funky place. It was game on. One of my friends was working for a production company, and he was like, Ash, that's a brilliant idea for a TV program. Sky TV got involved, so it started to escalate, where they said, right, we want to commission the production company to make a 3-part program. Program 1, I sell everything. Program 2, live from Las Vegas. Program 3, what happened next? I thought, I can't really back out now. Not that I would have, because I was genuinely going to do the bet anyway, but suddenly it's become a TV program. That was the real turning point for me, realizing that was it. A few weeks before I was doing this bet, I met this beautiful woman, Tamara, in this pub in London. I really liked Tamara. Straight away, instantly, I thought, I really fancy her. She's hot. And she said, well, so what do you do? I said, I'm going to Vegas in a few weeks to
Bet everything I own on one spin of a roulette wheel.
She must have thought, that she's heard some corny chat-up lines in her time, and that was the worst one she's ever heard.
I didn't believe it. I was like, well, porky pies, as we say in England. A very sort of nonsense story. I thought he was rather odd. I wasn't really sort of interested, but then actually asked me if I wanted to be part of the auction of selling all his belongings. Then it became really real for me. I was like, okay, actually he is selling, his clothes, his jewelry, his car, everything that he had.
Obviously, you've got the big items like the car, the BMW, that sold for $3,000. I had a Rolex watch that sold for $2,000, and whoever bought that at an auction got an absolute steal, because that was a beautiful watch. I also sold my name. It was with a company called Blue Square. They gave me £10,000 to change my name to Ashley Blue Square Revel. There was a news story in the UK, so they got a bit of publicity from it. I'm sure they got more than their £10,000 worth. Even though I sold my name, I didn't technically change it, ever. But they gave me money, and at this point, all that I'm interested in is maximising what the bet can be. Because obviously, the more money I can bet, the more money I can potentially win. I sold absolutely everything. I owned nothing. I had one outfit of clothes that I was wearing. I hired a tuxedo, which was going to be for doing the bet. And then I had my life savings as well. That was about $30,000. So the total amount that I managed to raise was $136,000. It was absolutely everything I owned. I was in a frenzy that I just wanted to do this bet. It was all-consuming. It's all I'd been thinking about for months and months. I'd told everyone the next step really was to fly out to Vegas to do it.
I wasn't part of the entourage. I stayed back, but I was nervous. Deep down, I was nervous for him.
When the plane was coming into land and you see all the casinos all lit up, it was almost like I'd died and gone to heaven. Up until that point, things had gone perfectly as far as planning's concerned. When it came to actually filming the bets, the day before, and cameras had been set up, suddenly the Hard Rock Cafe said, we're not doing it anymore, we're pulling out.
What?
They didn't trust the bet. You know, why is he doing it? Is it a scam? At the time, in the news, there was a group, they were European, and they were going around scamming roulette tables. So they were using some electronic device. I think they had it in their shoes. When the ball went past a certain point, they would click their left toe. And when the ball went past a certain number, they'd click their right toe. And eventually it would give an indication of a segment it would land in. It wouldn't be specific to a number, but they'd then bet on that. Perhaps think that they thought that I was doing that, but I had no reason to cheat, and certainly I didn't have the knowledge to do it, and I didn't want to cheat. So when the Hard Rock Casino pulled out, I was absolutely devastated. I was thinking it was a silly, drunken idea I had with my friend, and it escalated, blew out of all proportion.
Okay, right, sure.
Is this the start of things going wrong? Because I was just desperate to put the bet on. This was the culmination of months and months of thinking about it, and it wasn't going to happen. It was really all steam ahead to find any casino that would accept it. And the production company started to phone around, and then the Plaza, which is downtown, they said, oh, we'll do it. It was such a huge relief when the Plaza came through. I was like, my goodness, this is incredible. So I went to meet up with them. It was a guy wearing a big Stetson, and he had a big emerald ring on his finger, and he goes, hey, I didn't get where I am today without gambling, actually. So that's a terrible American accent. I said, right, brilliant. We'll do it tomorrow. So that was it. So it was back on. Because it was being filmed, there was obviously TV cameras that were filming. At that point, I went to the casino cage and withdrew the money in chips.
This is it. This is my life. Doesn't look a lot when it's in chips, does it? That's the secret, I think.
I had everything I owned in my hands, and they were casino chips. The only decision I had to make was to pick red or black.
I was thinking black, but to be honest, I'm going to decide when I'm at the table.
So as I was walking along, I was hoping for some divine inspiration, and I wasn't getting that. So but I got to the table, and there was a lot of cheering and stuff because my friends and family had been flown out by the production company. My mum and dad were there. It was a huge, huge decision. I looked round and was like, well, you know, red or black, what am I going to do? I didn't know. One would be the right answer. I just had to pick that. I had nothing else to think about. It was the biggest decision of my life. It was going to be red.
I actually went to see my parents in Holland. I knew that I wanted to watch it live somewhere. We went into Amsterdam and we just basically went to every single pub that might have Sky. And there was a lot of pubs that say, no, 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 we don't show that. And then there was one that said, oh, yes, no, I can get Sky. And so he set it up at a big screen for us, so we actually watched it live.
And the croupier's giving me a little rundown. I had to say red or black within 2 spins of the roulette wheel. So when they throw the white ball round, it does a few circuits. But I had to make my decision within 2 of those circuits, so else it would be a no bet. He goes, you ready? And I was like, yeah, I'm ready. And for some reason, I asked to kiss the ball.
The people in the pub had no idea that I was dating Ashley. He kisses the ball, you know, we're all like holding our breath.
The croupier span the ball, and I immediately just said red and pushed all my chips on red. Once I'd pushed the chips in the middle, everything went silent. So there was loads of cheering and noise beforehand, but it was like being in a vacuum of silence. At that moment in time, I realized that I had nothing. It's almost like when you're a baby, you come out with nothing, you're naked, and I was, apart from a hired tuxedo I was wearing. The reality of it was, if it goes on black, I'd be without anything in Las Vegas, pretty much destitute. I could lose everything. I'm watching the ball spin round the wheel, and my heart's about to burst out of my chest because everything is built up to that moment. Is it going to win like I've told everyone it will, or is something bad going to happen? It landed on reds. Suddenly, there's just a huge roar, and I was suddenly out of my daze. It was a euphoric moment. It all erupted. Big shout and roar, and everyone was clapping. I turned around and shook hands with my dad, which was pretty formal. And my mum was just sort of in tears, just with happiness, and they were over the moon. I was jumping around, someone had champagne, and it was just this most euphoric moment.
And then, obviously, it was just like complete excitement from all of us, and we were shouting. And, you know, when my friend says, oh, well, she's dating him, they were like, what? That's crazy. I was like, yeah, I know.
It was just crazy. I remember the guys gave me an ovation, a standing ovation. That was brilliant. That meant so much to me. In that moment, I had doubled my money and turned it into $272,000. Thank goodness I didn't lose. You know, just thank God. Don't do that again. That was a silly thing to do. I didn't really consider going again. It's a question that's been asked to me a few times since, saying, well, oh, you should have done it again. I shouldn't have done it again. I shouldn't have done it in the first place. When I look back at the TV program, I just see just this real arrogant twit. Actually, I sort of hope that he loses when I watch it. But that was me, and I think you've got to have that sort of arrogancy to even consider doing it. It changed me a lot. You know, I'm not the same person. I wasn't the same person 5 minutes after doing the bet than I was before. And it was such an adrenaline rush. It was just crazy. And I would never, ever do anything that insane ever again.
My real name is but you can call me Tyrone Jackson. So I'm an advantage player. What that means is I look for inherent advantages that can be gained in casino games, and I'm very good at it. You watch a movie and you're like, how the hell can James Bond, Bruce Lee, one guy take out 50, 100 guys? I'm that guy. I've taken millions of dollars out of casinos all over the world. It's a war. Casinos do it to everyone else to the tunes of billions of dollars every year. What's wrong with me taking a few $1,000s a month out of a casino? What's wrong with that? I grew up on the south side of Chicago. It was the kind of neighborhood you could chew you up. The streets could get you real quickly. Thank God my mom did a really good job. Also, there were uncles and family members. It takes a village. Even neighbors that made sure that I had a chance, I had an opportunity. And I think that they really went out of the way to make sure that I was that salmon swimming upstream that the bear didn't get. So when I was a kid, there were always games in the house. Aunts, uncles, dad played bridge, pinochle, games of that nature, and they always played for money. So you kind of grew up in that culture. Started pushing into gambling in junior high school. We would bet on everything. Am I faster than you are? Can I jump higher? Can I make more free throws than you can make? Can I get that girl's phone number before you can? At college, I was studying math and history, and some of the homework problems were math problems, and I learned about card counting. Card counting is really how to play your hand based on the cards that have already been played. And you don't have to count cards, but notice the trends on the table. If you see a lot of big cards come out, you probably want to increase your bet. If you see a lot of small cards come out, you probably want to lower your bet, because small cards are good for the house, big cards are good for the player. Why? Small cards allow them to make hands. Remember, the dealer has to hit 16 and below and stand on 17 and above. So if there are a lot of small cards left, 4s and 5s, he's gonna make hands. If he's making hands, you're gonna lose. On the other hand, if there are a lot of big cards, he's gonna bust more often. 16, 10, 26, he's out of there. So kind of try to keep a mental picture, if you will, of what's going on the table and use that to your advantage. You learn how to quickly look at what the card flow is. You begin to think, wow, this is interesting. Maybe I can use this. After one of the classes, I decided to go out on one of the boats in Chicago. I had a little card counting, or what I call card counting methodology at the time. I took maybe $500 and won like 1,000. I was hooked. You know, you win that kind of money, it seems like taking candy from a baby. I traveled the world taking down casinos by card counting. The typical pit boss is an older white guy. They have no respect for a guy that looks like me, and they think he's a nothing. He's certainly not an advantage player, anything but. I use that to my advantage. This is mental warfare. So you have to figure out a way that you can continue to come, look like a regular loser, but at the same time continue to win. I developed many different personalities to achieve those goals. The athlete. This is a guy who's maybe a football player, basketball player. He's got a lot of money, but you don't recognize his name because he's deep on the bench. The entertainer. You can be an opening act for a guy you've never heard of. I'm always the guy that you quite don't know who he is, but he has a talent to be who you thought he is. I'm that guy. I've been a doctor, I've been a lawyer, I've been a businessman. You name it, I've done it. Everything but a woman. But I'm working on that too. So that guy is the guy that can come in and bet that amount of money for a short amount of time. Every now and then he can get lucky. I mean, hell, anybody can get lucky. I get to live this kind of clandestine lifestyle and get the adrenaline from running from exit to exit, and you make some money. What could be better than that? But on the flip side, it's dangerous out there. It's a man-eat-man environment. You really need to be careful. You have to watch your back constantly. It is a war, it's a battle. You can get hurt. There's an entire community out here that we have. We have a network. We talk and we know what's going on in this casino, who to watch out for, that kind of thing. So I got a lead from the network of advantage players. There was a particular casino that had just opened, had a hell of a promotion. The game was sweet. I thought that I would win $1 gazillion. With card counting, there's a way to beat these games. I won every single hand. It was only a short amount of time, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and I was up 20,000. Immediately, I could feel the tension at the table. Knew they weren't happy with me winning that amount of money, and especially in that short amount of time. They started not to like me. At first, it was, oh, how you doing, Mr. Jackson? We love you, blah, blah, blah. Then it was like, oh, here comes this guy again. You know, they're whispering in the radio. They were out to get me. I wake up in the morning, phone rings, and it was the shift manager. And he gives you the song and dance, said, you can't play any longer, and you're gonna have to be escorted from your room. And I was told not to go back down to the casino floor. You think I'm gonna listen to that? I'm here to win, and you know, I'm not gonna be stopped. Waited till the shift was over, went right back downstairs and re-engaged. It was on all over again. And there's a problem, because now I'm doing what they told me not to do. And they sent security to the table to escort me back up to my room. You know something's up, you just don't know what's up and what's gonna happen to you. You can feel the hair on your back being raised. It turned out the casino wasn't through with me.
Sir, we're gonna have to ask you to follow us.
There have been stories of guys getting back-roomed, which is when they take you to a room and they can physically do some bodily harm to you. What are they gonna do to me? Are they gonna hurt me? Are they gonna kill me? Don't know. Scary. I have to go up to my room and pack. There's a guy standing there like we're on a date, but we're not. I'm packing my stuff, and I'm like, what the are you looking at me like that for? He's looking at me like I'm robbing a bank. And this isn't even his money. I'm like, you know, I'm trying to chat the guy up. The guy doesn't want to talk to me. Pack my things, and when I go to the elevator, there's some guys standing there as if they're waiting for me. And I was so shook up. They follow me to my car. I won $20,000, which combined with a $50,000 bankroll meant that I had a totality of $70,000 in cash. A lot of money. These guys are following me. I get in the car, and I'm gonna just drive off and be gone for a while. Maybe things will cool down. The next thing you know, I'll pull up to the light. There is a car following me. I'm pulling off. They're not driving aggressively, but aggressively enough to know that you're being followed. I make some wrong turns, they make the same wrong turns. Why are they following me? What are they gonna do to me? I wouldn't imagine the guys from security are gonna leave the property. Do they have that kind of jurisdiction and power? Are they supposed to do that? They did it. Were they security? Maybe they weren't security. Who knows? Can't be good. 70,000 on me. People killed a lot less than that. You don't know what they're capable of, and you have to think that it's a real possibility. Some colleagues have been robbed and killed before. You gotta think about that, especially when you're in the middle of nowhere. You don't know anybody. You do know how much money you have on you, and you do know you're by yourself. You don't have a weapon. What are you gonna do? I decided, after some quick thought, to turn around and head right back to the casino. My thought was if I got off the property, I may be better, but that may have been a bad idea because if you think about it, maybe I should stay on property where the cameras and stuff like that. But when you're under this kind of duress, you don't always think clearly. When I parked the car, they approached the car and they want to speak with me. I don't want to talk to these guys. I don't know what they're going to say, but whatever it is, it can't be good. I turned around and slowly walked away. So at the edge of the hotel parking lot, there was a street and then a forest, and that's where I decided to go to try to get away and be safe. As I'm walking, they're following me. It seems like they're moving a little faster than I am. The walk became a jog, and the jog became a run, and the run became a sprint up a hill into the woods, and then off I went. As they could take your money and take your life. Out here in the middle of the woods, these guys were on my tail. At this point, they were calling my name.
Tyrone! We just want to talk to you, man.
Talk about what? What are you gonna do? There's nothing to talk about here. What is it? Why? No. I was sure they were out to get me. I'm not gonna give you a chance to me up. You're gonna have to work real hard to me up. I'm not gonna give you a chance. They were shouting for me by my alias name, and I didn't want to make a sound. I'm describing it in minutes. It seemed like it took 10 hours. You know, you're caught in an ambush. What are you gonna do?
There's no sign of him.
Hiding in the woods like a squirrel was not fun. I was prepared to stay out there all night long if I had to. After a time, I ended up bolting for the parking lot to try to get away as fast as possible. Got in my car and got the hell out of there. I come up to a light that turns red and I run through the light, get on the expressway, and I'm doing like 300 miles an hour. I even felt like the cameras at the toll booths were watching me. I've never felt so paranoid in my life. It's like, well, we know where he is, and I didn't feel comfortable until I got out of the state. I've never had that feeling before in my life. I can't describe it to you other than to say that I got away with it, and I was $20,000 richer. Ultimately, the money and I got home safe, and we were blessed to be alive.
I'm Richard Munchkin, and I have taken millions of dollars out of casinos around the world as a professional gambler. I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, and I was fascinated with games from the time I was very little. The winters back there are brutal, so we would stay inside and play games. In high school, my older brother invited some of his friends over to the house to play poker. And we were literally playing for nickels and dimes. And at the end of the day, I was ahead, $5.20. And it was like the heavens opened and the angels began to sing. And I thought, oh my God, I can actually make money playing cards. Like, this is the greatest thing in the world. So I started playing as much as I could. Basically, I went through college playing poker. That was how I earned a living while I was in college. And then one day, I was playing backgammon with a friend in a bar in Chicago. And he told me that he had a system for beating blackjack. There's a way of counting the cards and being able to keep track of them, and you can actually have a mathematical advantage. And he recommended a book called Playing Blackjack as a Business. And I got it, and I read it, and I thought, okay, this makes sense. This is math. For my 21st birthday, I flew out to Las Vegas, and I started practicing to become a professional card counter. Counting cards is a method for keeping track of low cards and high cards, and the ratio of those two things. And blackjack, shoe, you know, is like 6 decks of cards. And when you play, cards are removed from the shoe. And that does affect what's going to happen the next hand. And when there are more low cards in the deck, that favors the house. So you want to bet as little as possible. When there are more 10s and aces in the deck, the count goes higher. That favors the player, and you want to bet as much as possible. So smaller cards favor the house, and higher cards favor the player. That's basically how card counting works. And the question that I get asked most often is, isn't that illegal? And the answer is absolutely not. It's not illegal anywhere in the United States or any country I've ever been to. In the nice places, they come up and they say, we don't want your action anymore. And in the not so nice places, they can be pretty nasty. In the old days, card counters would get roughed up. In Las Vegas, they have been around the longest and been exposed to card counting the longest. The further you get away from Las Vegas, the less the casinos understood, and really the more money you could make because they just thought you were getting lucky. People would call me and say, I found a great game in Korea, or I found a great game in Russia. Those phone calls are worth literally millions of dollars. One of my friends calls me once and he says, I found a game that's really good. That means that I'm gonna go strap $50,000 in cash to my body, leave the wife and young kids at home, and head to an airport. And in this case, I was heading for Moscow. I had never been to Russia before. I had no idea what I was getting into. I mean, it's Russia. They can just say, we think you're a card counter. We've decided that's illegal. We're just taking the money back. My trip was about to go from a dream to a nightmare. I had never been to Russia before and had no reason to go because prior to this, they had no casinos. And the casino people really didn't understand the games. And they were giving away the store. The rules were so good. Any blackjack player that heard would have immediately jumped on a plane and flown over there to try to play. I go into this little casino, and it's off the lobby of a hotel. And there is a nightclub that's closed. I go look in the nightclub. It's dark. There's, chairs and tables and a little stage. And then way in the back, I see a door with a porthole window with light behind it. I think it's the kitchen, but I go back there and I push through the door and here's this little casino. There's 6 or 8 tables. There's only 2 customers in the whole place. But I sit down and I start to play. I bought in for $2,000 and the maximum bet on this table was $500. And I start to win. And the count goes higher, and so I start betting the maximum the table allows, and I just get lucky. Sometimes it has nothing to do with my skill, you just get lucky. I won every hand. It was ridiculous. But I'm a little bit worried because when we go into a casino to play, we set a number. How much is this casino comfortable losing? If you win over that, bad things start to happen. So we want to go right up to the ceiling and stop. So in Russia, I have no idea. I'm shooting in the dark here. In 15 minutes, I'd won $26,000. Now, the pit boss is a young guy. He looks like he's wearing his father's suit, and every hand I win, he just starts to look sicker and sicker. And the color starts to drain from his face, and I keep thinking, this is not gonna end well. So I finish the shoe, and I think I better just cash out. And now the same guy is the cashier, and he says, look, I'm sorry, we don't have enough cash to pay you. I say, how much do you have? Basically, he gives me back my $2,000, so I'm left with 22 $1,000 chips. And then he tells me, the owner will be here tomorrow. Come back tomorrow, he'll have your money. And now I'm starting to think, oh boy, this is gonna be a problem. I'm gonna get screwed out of $22,000. I immediately go to the Cosmos poker room and see Jeff. Now, Jeff is an Australian guy who discovered all these blackjack games in Russia early, and he has moved here and has been here for years. Jeff runs the poker room at the Cosmos Hotel, so he knows every casino and everything that is going on in the gambling scene in Moscow. And I tell him what happened. He goes, yeah, they can't afford that much. He says, this is the way it works in Russia. The laws and the police and the courts, worthless. Every business has what's called a roof. And your roof is your local mafia boss. If you have a dispute, you go to your roof. And that casino's roof is Chechen mob. And he says, and you're in luck because my roof here at the poker room is also Chechen mob, but my roof is higher than their roof. And I say, okay. And he says, would you take $18,000 for the 22 chips? I was like, done. Let's do it right now. Jeff says, I have to leave, but this is Natasha. And here's this Russian woman, and she's mysterious like a femme fatale, kind of scary, like if you had sex with her, you might not live through it. And he says, Natasha will take care of you. She will introduce you to our roof and meet at the other casino. So I'm just sitting there waiting and waiting. And about 10 o'clock at night, Natasha comes up to me and she says, we go to get your money. And we drive back to the other casino. So we get out of the taxi and we walk into the lobby, and there's two huge guys with a little guy in the middle. And they're all wearing black turtlenecks and black suits. And I look over at the closed nightclub, and they have a metal detector there and two big security guards. And those security guards are not happy. It seems pretty clear these two groups of mobsters do not like each other. Natasha starts talking to the little one. So it's clear to me that these are my Chechen mobsters, and the guys over at the metal detector are their Chechen mobsters. She says, okay, we go. And now we all start heading for the metal detector. As we're going, the guards start talking to the guys behind me in Russian. And as we're going, the volume is getting louder and louder and louder, and to the point now they're yelling at each other. And as I'm going through the metal detector, one of the guards grabs me by the wrist and starts pulling me in, and one of the guys behind me grabs me by the other wrist and starts pulling me out. And now I'm in a literal tug of war between two factions of the Chechen mob. And I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing? I just want to play cards. How did this happen to me? I didn't think I was going to get out of there alive. I pull loose, and we all back out into the lobby, and Natasha says to me, those men do not want these men to go inside. I said, yeah, I kind of got the message. And she says, you and me, we go in, and if they have the money, okay. If not, don't say a word, just come back out. Okay. We go into the casino, and it's the same pit boss, and he is white and sweating. And he says, this is very bad. You should not have brought those men here. They should not be here. And I said, do you have my money? And he says, I have some. I said, how much? He says, 1,000. The guy gives me the 1,000, and I give him one chip. He says, you come back in a week, and I give you another 1,000, and another week, another 1,000. And I say, I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm gonna be back in America. So I'm gonna give the chips to them, the other mobsters out there in the lobby. They'll collect the money. And he says, oh no, only you can collect this money. I said, well, you'll have to take that up with them. So we go back out to the lobby, and I still have 21 $1,000 chips. And I want to leave. I'm supposed to leave tomorrow. My only hope is that these guys are going to give me the $18,000. Natasha talks to the little guy in Russian, and he keeps shaking his head. No problem. give me the chips. I said, well, Jeff said, like, you would give me $18,000 for the chips, and I don't want to. He was like, oh, okay, you give them to Jeff. I called Jeff, and Jeff says, leave the chips with Natasha and come down in the morning and pick up your money. I was like, Jeff, no. I'm not going to give up my chips to anybody without getting the money at the same time. I'm certainly not going to trust this Chechen mobster, and I'm not just going to leave the chips with Natasha. I'm not even going to leave them with Jeff. No, you get the chips when I get the money. And he says, all right, well, just come down in the morning. I'll have the money for you there in the morning, and then you can give the chips to Natasha. So I go up to my room, and I try to sleep, but I can't. And plus, it's a really cheap hotel, and there are hookers that walk up and down the hallways knocking on people's doors. This is definitely not America. There is nothing here to protect me. Look, if I lost the $21,000 in the casino, that's fine. That happens all the time. It's nothing. But to lose it in this way, I'm just feeling awful. The next morning, I go to the poker room. Natasha is there. I say, do you have the money? And she nods her head. And I say, where is it? And she goes over to a cabinet. She comes back with $18,000. I don't even count it. I'm like, thank God. And I give her the chips. And Jeff's roof will collect the full $21,000 after I'm gone. It was one of the happiest transactions of my life. I immediately jump in a cab and I drive directly to the airport, and I got on the plane. I had somehow survived a literal tug-of-war between two factions of the Chechnyan mob. Counting cards is never worth risking your life.